Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 2nd edition of the MMA OB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and join companion here, Cole Shelton, to break down UFC 250 as well as recap UFC Fight Night, Woodley versus Burns. Cole, how's it going, man? How's everything? How are you holding up to considering the state of the world right now?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of not good stuff. It's honestly tough to see and watch the news and see all that stuff. Like, my Twitter page is often just I go to Twitter kind of just to go away from a lot of stuff, and it's just coming to it. It's a lot of hard stuff just going on.
Yeah. Well, you guys know me. I only like to talk about sports, especially MMA. I'm not going to talk about any of the political stuff going on. You know, it's obviously a terrible situation, but we're here to talk about sports and to distract everyone from what's going on in the world. So, Cole, we got a lot to talk about today. We'll start with UFC Fight Night, Woodley Burns. Let's recap that card, and then we'll move on to the UFC 250 preview. So let's start with this card, Cole. Overall, it was a pretty good card, I think. As far as picks go, I had a good night, 9-2, Cole went 7-4, so our picks were pretty solid for the most part. There was at least one I wanted to have back, but it is what it is. It's hard to go perfect. Anyways, let's go through the card, Cole. Start with the main event, Burns versus Woodley. I did pick Gilbert Burns by decision. That was one of the better picks I've had in a while, to be honest with you. Like, my main event previews have not been very good lately, so a lot of upsets, and I've been kind of embarrassed about that. But you know what? It happens. So finally, get a good pick here with Burns winning decision. He looked amazing, Cole. Better than I expected. I thought it'd be a more competitive fight. Like, didn't expect to be that one-sided. Woodley has lost 2 straight fights, Cole, with like 50-44 scorecards. Like, he's on a massive decline. We'll talk about him in a sec, but we got to talk about Burns first. By far the best performance of his career, Cole. He looked incredible. Just put it all together in this fight, man. First round, I'm a little surprised Woodley hung in there, man, because I thought when he dropped him, the fight was going to be stopped. Really close to getting finished there, but Burns, full 5 rounds, just kept pushing the pressure. Woodley obviously had a bad performance, but as far as Burns goes, to me, this is like such a big win for him, Cole. Like, obviously, in the ranking just came out, he's number 1, which actually I agree with, to be honest with you. I agree with it for this reason. Woodley was ranked number 1, so Burns just beat him. He should jump ahead of him. The only guy I consider having ahead of him is Covington, because he had that razor-thin fight against Usman. He did lose by T-Gill in the 5th, but it was a close fight. Masvidal, I love Masvidal. I want to see him fight for the belt, Cole, but his best win is Ben Askren or Nate Diaz, or I guess Till, but those guys were not like the number 1 guy. Woodley was. So to me, Burns being number 1 makes sense. I'm fine with it. He called for a title shot, Cole. I don't mind that fight. I would like to see that fight. They're obviously our training partners, so it'd be a really intriguing fight, in my opinion. I think Masvidal probably should get it next because he has been waiting a little bit longer, Cole, but Burns could definitely jump in there. So just talk about Burns for a sec. We'll go to Woodley in a minute, but give me your thoughts on Burns and where he fits in the division.
Yeah, I picked Woodley. I just thought this was a bit too much too soon for Burns, just because his welterweight run, it wasn't any like huge names other than Maia, but he only has a couple fights left, so I wasn't sold on how good he was at welterweight yet, but this win definitely sold me. Like, this is 10 straight rounds Tyron Woodley has lost. Like, he has not won a round since he beat Darren Till, which is crazy because that Darren Till performance was amazing. But with Burns, like, he's 100%. He's either getting a title shot or he's in a number 1 contender fight with like Covington or Edwards. Like, he's right there. I wouldn't be surprised if Masvidal does, if the UFC can't figure out the negotiations with Masvidal and Usman and they just turn to Burns, because Burns is a guy that will take a lot of fights. I think he's going to be easy to negotiate for a title, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one fighting for the belt next.
Absolutely, Cole. I agree with you. You talk about the money situation. Like, I'm sure Masvidal is asking for more money than Gilbert Burns right now. Burns deserves it, and he's underpaid. But I think he'd take a deal the UFC offered to get that title shot. And to be honest with you, Cole, I think he could be really competitive with Kamaru Usman. I don't know if he'd win the fight. It's a hard one to pick, really tough to pick, but it'd be a great fight. It's funny you said that you weren't sold on Burns until this fight. It was the opposite for me, Cole, the last fight, because I picked Maia, and when Burns knocked him out, I was like, man, this is the second time Maia's ever been KO'd like that in his whole career. Like, to me, that was the moment that I love Burns. So I was a little surprised you didn't jump on his bandwagon for this fight, Cole, but I guess you are all over the Gilbert Burns bandwagon now. I mean, how can you not be, really? Like, first off, the guy's a great fighter. And second, Cole, I love his personality, man. He's awesome on Twitter. He's hilarious. And he likes to fight, Cole. He's like, I'm down to fight. Like, put me in a fight right now. Like, he wants to fight again. He said he wants to fight this month. Cole, why not? I mean, if there's a fight open, like if there's like an Edwards fight, like Edwards versus Burns fight, I'm fine with that too. Like, if he's like, you know what, I don't want to wait for a title shot. I want to fight Covington or Edwards in the meantime. Those would be great fights. Or even Stephen Thompson. That's a great fight too. So to me, like, those are all really good fights. Definitely loving Burns right now. well deserving of that number one spot, in my opinion. The guys looked amazing since moving up to welterweight last year. Okay, so let's talk about Woodley for a sec. I don't want to go too much on Woodley here because he lost the fight, but former champion. He is a guy that's obviously been at the top of the sport for a while, but Cole, to me, is on a steep decline. I actually picked against him the last two fights. I've been picking against him for a while, but that Till fight surprised me, I gotta be honest, a couple of years ago. Since then, though, Cole, nothing. Barely fights and hasn't did anything in his fights. He's just very hesitant to even throw strikes. He just stands there and gets picked apart. I don't understand. It looks like he has no game plan going into these fights. He looks lost in there. It looks like a guy that doesn't want to fight MMA anymore, which is fine. I mean, he was a champ. He made a lot of money from the sport. I think he does. He's doing the TMZ thing. He's doing well for himself. The rap career. I mean, who knows where that's going to go? But Cole, honestly, this doesn't look like a guy that wants to fight anymore. To me, it's a guy with one foot out the door, and he has had it for a while. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know where would it goes from here. If he fights again, I think it has to be a step down competition, like a Robbie Lawler rematch, maybe fight an RDA, someone like that. I don't think he's ever going to get another title shot. I don't think he can work himself back up to get another title shot. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I wouldn't be surprised if he calls it a career because he has so much stuff. He has his music, he has acting, he has TMZ going on for him. He has so many jobs outside the cage that I wouldn't be surprised. But I still think he fights at least one more to try to end on a win. I don't think he wants to end on 2-fight losing streak.
Yeah, he might fight again. I'm not saying he won't, but I just think, Cole, this is not the same guy we saw a few years ago when he was the champion of the division. So, you mentioned Lawler too. I mean, they were supposed to fight last year. I guess it'd be an okay fight. Why not? And I mean, Lawler needs a win too, to be quite frank. So that fight makes sense. And then you mentioned the other fight there, RDA. That's a good fight too. Really, I mean, they could match him up with anyone. The whole top 15 in welterweight is amazing. It's so stacked, Cole. Any of these matchups, people are like, who's Burns going to fight next? Burns against any of those top 5 guys is a good fight, Cole. And they're all new fights too, which is great. That's why I love about Burns, because he was at lightweight. No one even thought about him as a welterweight contender. Very similar to me to Robert Whittaker at middleweight when he moved up from welterweight, Cole. He really took a step forward, made a lot of improvements and durability improvements too, So I've just been impressed by Burns, man. This is a guy that I mean, when he came to the UFC, we were all like, this guy is such amazing jiu-jitsu. He's going to do really well, but he kept missing weight at lightweight. Somehow he started making it, but eventually, he's like, I'm just going to move up and stop cutting the weight. And he's looked incredible. So I've been really impressed with him. Johnny Bones Jones got a comment here. Woodley Thompson 3. No, I don't want to see that fight again, man. Sorry, bro. Cole?
No.
First fight was pretty good. I mean, there was one crazy round, basically. It was a fight of the night. Second, or was it? I can't remember if it was the first or second fight. Let me double check here.
But the second fight was boring.
First fight was a draw and was an amazing fight. The second fight was a majority decision and it was a really boring fight. The Damian Maia fight was also boring. Honestly, Woodley's had some really stinkers in his career. He's had some good performances like Lawler and a couple other guys, but man, he hasn't looked good, Cole. All right, let's get through the rest of the card here. Next fight, Sakai against Ivanov, and Sakai wins a split decision. Close fight. Don't know what that one judge was smoking, man. Was he smoking crack? 30-27 Ivanov. Are you kidding me? It was 29-28 either guy. Came down in the second round. I scored for Sakai, Cole. I think you scored it for Ivanov. I can't remember.
No, I had it for Sakai.
Yeah, for Sakai. Okay, so super close fight. He should get a top 10 guy, though, after this win, because Ivanov, to me, is kind of underrated, too. He's a pretty tough dude. Let me take a look at the division quickly. I haven't really thought about who you should fight.
Were you one of those people that thought a point should have been taken?
No. Okay, I'll tell you. I'm going to talk about this for a sec. This is a great way to segue into this quickly. So, because there's no fans in the arena, you can hear everything. So when DC yelled that out, by the way, DC is a training partner of Ivanov, or used to be anyways, it was clear bias on DC's part. I love DC. He's amazing, but he shouldn't be doing that like that. It was so loud, Cole. Take a point away. You're not the coach. You're not the corner. You're a commentator. You can express your opinion, but to me, it was too loud and it was distracting. And then people were like, well, it should have been a point taken away. Dude, I'm not saying it shouldn't have been a point, because to me, when a guy grabs a fence, they should get a point automatically. But almost every fight sees a guy grab a fence and not get a point. So all of a sudden, Ivanov or Sakai has to get a point taken away. It's kind of crazy just because DC said it, Cole. So I didn't agree with that. To me, it was a bunch of hive mind. It was just hive mind. People jumping on what DC said. Again, grab the fence, you should get a point. But almost every fight, someone grabs a fence and just gets warned, just like in this case. Could that have changed the fight? Possibly. I think Sakai would have got back up. People were like, oh, well, Ivanov would have dominated him. How do we know that? Anyways, Cole, honestly, it wasn't a very good fight. Whose idea was it to have is this a co-main event? What a joke. Anyways, thoughts on the matchup, and then I'm going to quickly talk about Sakai's next fight. But just give me your thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, this was probably the worst fight on the card, would you say? Like, I don't know why this was the co-main. When we saw it, neither guy really finishes fights. Like, Sakai did in his last fight, but most of his have gone decision. Ivanov hasn't got a finish in the UFC, and he's never been finished. I figured this would be a decision. I don't normally just throw heavyweight just before the main event just so it can be a finish, but this one is not one you do just because it probably wouldn't have been finished. Like, there was a lot better fights. You could have done like Roberts, Mackenzie Dern, like just give one of those up and comers a bigger spotlight and put them in the co-main because those fights were pretty much guaranteed to be a finish.
Yeah, Dern should have probably been in the co-main, but anyways, yeah, it wasn't a very good fight. You know, as far as like I said, the rankings go, Sakai actually moved up to number 10. He just passed Olenek. That would actually not be a bad fight. Walt Harris is another possible guy, number 9. That probably makes sense, Cole. The next guy up. I know he's coming off a loss, but whatever. I think that's the kind of fight he could take. So, because to me, he's not ready for guys like Overeem, Rosenstruck, and those kind of guys. I don't think he should get that fight, quite frankly. So we'll see what happens there. Moving down the card, to me, this was easily fight of the night. Billy Quarantillo defeats Spike Carleo. Unanimous decision. Great fight, back and forth. I personally have for Carlisle, but I have to rewatch it because I've asked a few people, and some people, said that he gassed out a lot. And Quarantillo, they thought won the second round. I thought Carlisle won the second. It was a swing round. The media scores were pretty split, but mostly towards Quarantillo. So I think you scored for Quarantillo, Cole. But either way, a super close fight. Great fight. I was shocked when it didn't win fight of the night. I think it should have won fight of the night. I know Dana said later that he's going to like kick some extra money, whatever that means. If that's like 10 grand or 5 grand, whatever. But they'll get something extra, Cole, not 50 grand. So I don't know. What do you think about the fight? Should it have won fight of the night, like I thought?
I thought it should have been fight of the night. This is a much better fight than Elliott Royval. I think even Dana White, when he announced it and he saw the reaction of all the media, he knew he probably messed it up. I thought what was crazy about this fight is, what was it, the end of the first round where Carlisle just got up when he heard the 10-second clapper? I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen this in a UFC fight. Like, it was crazy, but that fight was just so back and forth. It was a close one. I had it 29-28 for Quarantillo. I thought he won the second and third, but that second round could have won either way.
Yeah, great fight. And we got turned up MMA. Adam and Cole, what's up, gentlemen? What's going on, bro? Yeah, it was a great fight. And as far as where these guys go next, who knows, really? I mean, they're middle of the pack lightweights, but definitely, two talented guys for sure. And I'm curious to see what they do in their next fights. Or I guess they're featherweights too. I don't really know, Cole. Like, they're both featherweights, right? They just catch weight. Moving down another catch weight bout here because Brock Weaver missed weight. Roosevelt Roberts. One of the biggest favorites of the sports books for a reason. Kind of a mismatch. Brock Weaver, Cole, to me, not UFC caliber. It's a guy that lost to Joe Riggs in bare knuckle boxing. And as you mentioned to me, he won a split decision over Charles Crazy Horse Bennett, who is like completely washed up at this point in his career. So to me, it's a guy, he's just not UFC caliber. He probably gets one more fight because, he's got 4 fights in his deal. He's 1-1 so far. But to me, Cole, like just a guy that's not that great. And as far as Roberts go, he's a decent prospect. Not as good, I don't think, as some people think, but definitely a solid prospect. I'm curious to see where he goes next. But to me, the Vincent Shaw fight really exposed him. So I don't know. I'm not super high on him anymore. I used to be higher on him before that fight. Anyways, thoughts on these two guys?
Yeah, I'm not really high on Brock Weaver. And that, I was just checking his record. That split decision win over Charles Bennett was Bennett's 7th loss in a row. So that's how you tell where he was in his career. I don't think Brock Weaver's UFC caliber. I don't really. He got in because of his post-fight interview at the Contender Series. I don't think Dana White was going to give him a contract until that point.
Yeah.
I don't think his first fight against Vargas, he only won because of the DQ. He looked terrible in that fight. Roosevelt Roberts just dominated him. I don't know if he can be a single person in the lightweight roster in the UFC. I think he's going to get one more. I think he's going to lose again. I think that's going to be it for Brock Weaver in the UFC.
I got to pull out the full roster now, man. If you're going to say that, I got to see who else is in the division at the bottom of it. I think there's someone he can beat, right? Like, there's got to be someone. Looking at some of these guys, like I'm just looking at who he could be matched up with. He'll probably get matched up against another guy from the Contender Series, like Steve Garcia. Like that'd be a good fight.
Yeah.
And he could win that fight possibly. So probably not though. Actually, probably gets KO'd in that fight too. You're right, Cole. There's not many guys he could beat. There's a few guys at the bottom division, like John Gunther. It says he's still on the roster. He could beat him, I think. But anyways, you're right. Not a great fighter. Just going down the rest of the card, Mackenzie Dern picks up a great win over Hannah Cyphers. To be honest, Cyphers looked really good in the first minute, landing great knees from the clinch, hurting Dern to the body, and then for some reason wanted to play in the ground with her. What was she thinking, Cole? Stupid.
Yeah. And she's someone that if the UFC had an atomweight division, she would be a really good atomweight. But she looked strong in there. Like she was keeping Mackenzie Dern upright. She in the clinch, she was probably the stronger girl in there. And then for some reason she decide to go down to the ground on Mackenzie Dern, which I don't know why you would have. I think that should have been the game plan from the beginning, is keep this fight standing and we'll have success. But she went down to the ground. She got penalized for it because she got submitted really quickly.
Yeah, and as far as Dern goes, she wants to be the first UFC women's mom. I mean, I guess she has a chance because of her ground game, really. Like, she has that X factor. Fight goes to the ground, Dern, she can probably finish it. Having said that, she's been kind of exposed by Amanda Ribas already. So, if she fights fights Zhang, she's gonna get destroyed, in my opinion. But there's definitely some fighters in that top 15 she can beat. Cole, she's definitely a good prospect. She is someone who could be a star for the UFC because she's very attractive and a very good fighter. So she could be a star, but I just going to see more out of her after the Ribas fight. We got some questions about her now. All right, just going through the prelims here quickly. Cole, Kaylin defeats Antonia Shevchenko, 325 across the board. You did pick Chookagian, by the way. Good pick. I know Marcus had a bet on her. I think Marcus, you won $600 or something. Good job. As far as this fight goes, it was just a beatdown from start to finish. Just a terrible performance by Pantera. She is not as good as Valentina, her sister, obviously. Cole, I just thought the matchup would take place in the feet and it'd be a striking battle. That's why I went to Shevchenko, but Chookagian landed her first takedown of her career, and she landed her second and third. I mean, she just kept taking the fight to the ground, beating Antonina up. Credit to Antonina for surviving, I guess, but this was a lopsided win and great performance by Chookagian, although I still don't think it earns her like a rematch or anything like that.
No, and I don't know why the UFC is trying to rush Antonina so much. Like, they already had tried this experiment once with Roxanne Modafferi. They tried to give Shevchenko. She got beat down there on the ground. Yep. And then they're giving her the number one contender. I don't know why, because if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure, haven't Valentina and Antonina said they're never going to fight?
There's, unless it's for a belt, probably, I think they said.
Yeah, so I don't know why they're trying to rush her up to be a number one contender when she's not going to fight her sister. Like, why don't you slowly develop her and then see what happens? Like, I don't know why they keep on trying to give her these top girls. She shouldn't even be fighting ranked opponents, really, to me. What is she now, 2-2 in the UFC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's 2-2, and, she doesn't look too great, but the last name, man. She's also a little bit, older, I guess, for a prospect, age 35, Cole. So, to me, I don't know. I think maybe she started her MMA career a little bit too late. Anyways, let's go through the rest of the fights really quick here, Cole. Welterweight, Daniel Rodriguez defeats Gabriel Green, unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board. Jamal Hill at light heavyweight defeats Clinton Abreu, first round knockout. Nice knee to the body here. I thought he should have won a bonus. He had the fastest finish on the night, but Dern got it, and I'm okay with that because it was the first knee bar in women's history in the UFC. Flyweight division, Brandon Royval, I did pick him as a dog here. Defeats Tim Elliott by submission, which I called, Cole. And I think that was plus 300 or something. So, some people hit that. He looked really good in this fight. Great fight, for sure. Don't think it was fighting tonight, personally, but great fight. Next up, Casey Kenny defeats Louis Smolka, first round submission with a guillotine. Looked really good again. And then Chris Gutierrez with another great performance here against Vince Morales, finishing with leg kick TKO in the second round. Love to see that. Man, pretty good card. I mean, overall, Cole, and just any last thoughts on these prelims before we head to UFC 250?
That was a really good card. I have to agree. I think Jamal Hill got a performance of the night bonus, but there were so many people you could have given fight of the night or performance bonus to, so it was really tough to decide. Yeah,
and these kind of cards, you just wish the UFC had extra bonuses available. They do, but they just refuse not to give them out. All right, so let's get to UFC 250. We got 12 fights. One fight was booked really short notice last week, catchweight bout. But overall, Cole, I mean, to me, this is actually a really, really good card that just is lacking that big name main event. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of solid matchups. I'm really looking forward to watching this card. I think there's top to bottom, it's really good. I just think if you had another title fight, make it 2 title fights, and you could get away with Nunes Spencer or a better main event, it would be a really stacked pay-per-view.
Just say you had Masvidal versus Usman in the main event. Wouldn't that just make it one of the best cards of the year? I think, right? So to me, it's missing that extra ingredient here. But overall, good card. I struggle to see too many people buying this, Cole, because I just feel like Nunes versus Spencer is not a big enough fight to have a great pay-per-view number. The last card with Gaethje and Ferguson surprised me, 700,000. UFC did great. Maybe people are desperate to watch some sort of sport, so they will pay for it. But to me, Cole, this one's not going to break 300. But, overall, I think it's a really good card. I just think it needs that extra main event, and it didn't get it. So, short notice, you got to give the UFC credit for booking these fights because it's pretty solid overall. All right, let's start with the prelims and work our way to the top, as always, Cole. First fight of the night, catchweight bout, 150 pounds. The veteran Evan Dunn returns to the UFC after a temporary retirement when he takes on the brother of Gilbert Burns, Mr. Herbert Burns. And right now we got Herbert Burns, minus 220, Cole. Evan Dunham, plus 180. Who's your pick in this fight?
I really like Herbert Burns this fight, and I like him to win by stoppage. I don't really understand this fight. It was booked on what, like a week's notice, and what I really don't get is Evan
Yeah.
Dunn is a natural lightweight, and now he's cutting an extra 5 pounds to go to 150 catch weight. I already don't like that. He's coming off 2 straight knees TKO, which you don't really see. Olivier Mercier not TKO with knees, and then Trinaldo need him to the liver to TKO him. I think Herbert Burns on the ground is a lot better. I wouldn't be surprised if he can submit him. But even his last fight against Nate Landor, getting the knockout, so I wouldn't be surprised if he can connect something in the clinch and hurt Donovan TKO him. I think Herbert Burns is going to finish this fight in the first or second round.
That's interesting. Burns right now by inside the distance is he's only minus 125. So I guess the odds maker are actually favoring that too. People think Evan Dunn was shot. I mean, it's hard not to agree that coming off 2 straight losses, the TKO from knees to the body. That always scares me, Cole. When a guy's getting hurt by these body shots and going down. Evan Dunn's a guy who hasn't fought in over a year and a half now. He's a guy that retired for a while. He's a guy who's been around for a long time, 38 years old now. Actually, Cole, one of the most underrated lightweights for a long time, and a guy who never got a title shot. He got a really bad decision against Sean Shirk, which really hurt him, and then lost to Gillard and never recovered from that. Definitely a guy that I've enjoyed watching over the years. He's had some great fights, but I can't pick him here, Cole. I mean, he's, to me, on a steep decline. Herbert Burns is a guy who looked great in his UFC debut, knocking out Nate Landwehr, who's, as we've seen in the last fight, pretty damn tough. Herbert Burns is a guy that I was really high on in one championship. A little surprised they let him go, but I think it's a great pickup for the UFC. It's a guy who finished his fights too, Cole. Almost all of his wins are by stoppage. Evan Dunham's a guy who's been finished before. He is durable mostly, but he can't be finished. I think at this point in his career, Cole, I struggle to see Evan Dunham going the full 3 rounds as well. So you obviously have to lay juice right now, minus 125, but I think that's the way this fight probably ends. Burns inside the distance. But yeah, I like Burns in this fight, Cole. I don't understand that 150 catch weight. Kind of weird. I guess Dunham was possibly cutting down to 145 when he was going to return, I guess. But, he is close to the matchmakers. He lives in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. So I can see why he wanted this fight if he wants to return. But to me, the 150 thing is weird. I just like Herbert Burns in the fight, man. I think he finishes the fight. All right, next up, light heavyweight bout, Alonzo Menifield against Devin Clark. We got Alonzo Menifield minus 225, Devin Clark plus 185. Who's your pick, Cole?
I have Alonzo Menifield in this fight. I think it's definitely interesting to see this. This is a fight that was supposed to happen earlier in May, and then at the Oklahoma City card, obviously that event got canceled. Menifield hasn't fought in almost a year because it was June 29th, his last fight. Since then, he's had a really bad neck injury that took a whole year off his career, which was tough because Menifield was 2-0 in the UFC, 2 first-round knockouts over Vinicius Murray and Paul Craig. I think he has a lot of power. I don't think Clark can absorb the punches anymore. He gets rocked a lot in fights. I'm not super high on Devin Clark. I think Alonzo Menifield can catch Clark early and probably put him away in the first or second round.
Got Justin Dempsey here. Hello. What's going on, Justin? Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, Cole, I like Alonzo Menifield too. I'm not high on Devin Clark at all. I pick against him every fight. Basically, his chin is a huge concern in my opinion. This is a guy who cannot take a punch at 205, and that's a concern against a guy like Alonzo Menifield, who knocks almost everyone out that he fights. Clark, he has shown the ability to win decisions. So I am a little concerned, Cole, if Menifield can't get him out in the first, that he could gas a little bit as the fight goes on, and you could see possibly Clark win like a split decision just by grinding it out late. But I can't go that way just because of the chin. So to me, it's got to be Menifield by knockout here. That is my pick. Let's take a look here. Menifield by knockout. Those odds. Okay, we got inside the distance. Minus 180. So honestly, if you're going to bet Menifield, and I think a lot of people probably will bet him, just go with the money line because it's only, 45-cent difference. And just in case he does win a decision, then you're not in trouble there. So I like Menifield in this fight. I know a lot of people are going to bet on him. That's why I mentioned that. Maybe wait till the knockout prop comes out or round 1 because I think that's the way the fight goes, Cole. I think he finishes it pretty early. But again, it's one of those fights, Cole, where I got some bad feeling about this one, guys. I don't know what, but if he doesn't get him out in the first round, he could lose the decision and you might get screwed in your parlay. So definitely be a little bit careful about this one, I think. But Menifield should win. All right, next up, interesting fight here at flyweight, Cole. Alex Perez against UCA Formiga. Alex Perez minus 140, Formiga plus 120. Who's your pick?
I'm going with the underdog in UCA for Amiga. I know he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but look, we lost to Joseph Benavidez and Brandon Moreno. Benavidez is fighting for the belt. Moreno's probably next line to fight for the belt. I don't really understand the odds. Like Alex Perez, he's on a 2-fight winning streak, but he beat Jordan Espinosa and Mark De La Rosa. Those are 2 of the lower flyweights. Before that, lost to Benavidez. Formiga in 2019 even beat Davison Figueiredo, who really should be the UFC champion. He has wins over Sergio Pettis, Ben Wynn. I think Yusir Formiga is the better fighter all around. I think this one's going to go the full distance, and I like Formiga. I think he can use wrestling. I think on the feet he can have success. And even against Moreno, although he lost, it was a pretty close fight and a good fight. So I think Formiga has what it takes to just outwork Alex Perez and earn a decision win.
This one's tough. This is a close fight. This is one of the closest fights in the card. I don't like the odds on Perez because I think, to me, this is a pick'em fight, but I'm going to go with Perez slightly just because of the upside, man. He's a little bit younger. He's only 28. Formiga's 35 now. Formiga has looked pretty good overall in the UFC. And to be honest, he's one of the most underrated guys in the division because he's never even got a title shot. So to me, he's been underrated for a long time. But I just think Perez's upside, you got to go with here, man. I know he lost to Benavidez. It was disappointing, but this is a guy that can submit people. He can knock them out. As long as he keeps his fight standing, I think he wins. You know, if the fight goes to the ground, it's probably Formiga getting takedowns and lying on top of him like Figueiredo. But even if that happens, I still think Perez can scramble his way back to the feet. And on the feet, I see him having an advantage. So my pick's Perez, but Cole's right. For me, it could get takedowns here and just kind of lay on him and just win a decision. So to me, it's a close fight. Perez by decision, but I'm not going to bet on this fight personally. All right, next up we got Charles Byrd against Mackie Pitolo in the middleweight division. Right now we got Charles Byrd minus 165, Mackie Pitolo plus 145. Who's your pick, Cole?
I like Charles Byrd in this fight. I know he's a natural welterweight. This fight's at middleweight, but it's two welterweights because Byrd, the plan was to have him move down to welterweight, but just because it was short notice, they decided to stay at middleweight. But it's only because Pitolo's a welterweight as well, so there's going to be no size difference. At middleweight, he just was too small. Like Edmund Shabazi and Darren Stewart just out. They were just much bigger than him, and they just had the more power. He still had success. Like he submitted John Phillips, submitted Randall Wallace on the Contender Series, beat Jamie Pickett on the Contender Series. I'm just not high on Mackie Pitolo. I was high on him coming out of the Contender Series, but the loss to Kellen Potter, his striking defense was really poor. I don't think he's as hyped up, and he's lost by submission before, so I think Byrd could take this fight down to the ground and submit Mackie Pitolo. It's definitely an interesting fight. I don't love the odds. I think it should be closer, but my pick's probably Byrd. My pick is Byrd, and I think he might be able to finish it.
I like Pitolo, man. I got to go with Mackie Pitolo here. You know, younger guy, which I like quite a bit about him here. To me, that's a big advantage. Age 29 compared to Charles Byrd. They call him Kid Dynamite, but he's 36 years old now. To me, this is a guy you got to fade here, Cole, coming off the 2 straight knockout losses. I don't trust this guy's chin whatsoever. I think Pitolo can finish him. I know he looked terrible against Callum Potter. That was a horrible performance. I was shocked coming off that win over Justin Sumter, but this is a guy who can finish people. I think he's going to have a good performance here. I do see Pitolo getting the knockout here. So that's going to be my pick. I like Pitolo as a dog, and the odds on by inside the distance plus 260. That's worth a shot, guys. Against a guy in Charles Byrd who's been finished quite a few times, you got to go with Pitolo by knockout or by inside the distance. You know, you could submit him too. We'll see what happens. I mean, he's an underdog, but you got to take some dogs, and I think that this is a guy who has a good chance to win. All right, next up, we got bantamweight bout. The Cole, actually, it says bantamweight. It's featherweight.
It's featherweight, yeah.
Cole broke this fight, guys, by the way, for BJPenn.com. Cody Stamann against Brian Kelleher. And right now, Cole, we got Cody Stamann as a considerable favorite, man. Minus 265. Brian Kelleher plus 225. Those odds are crazy, Cole. What do you think about the fight?
Yeah, I think the odds should be closer, but I think Cody Stamann wins this fight. I just think he's the better fighter. Brian Kelleher is obviously surprised. Yeah. Submitted Ode Osborne and beat and knocked out Hunter Azar. It was May 13th, so he's turning around not even a month later. So he's obviously the fresher fighter. Stamann's last fight, I think a lot of us thought he beat Song Yadong. It was a draw. A lot of people scored it for him. I just think we've seen when Kelleher gets that real step up in competition, like a ranked guy, he loses, like a Marlon Vera, John Lineker, even Montel Jackson, who is a better prospect. He's beating the guys he should beat, and I don't think Stamann's the guy he should beat. I think Stamann could just use his wrestling. I don't think Kelleher can land a submission. Stamann's pretty good on the ground, where I think he just uses wrestling. On the feet, I think Kelleher probably has more power, so I think that's going to be interesting to see if he can catch Stamann. Stamann's a guy that can take a punch. He's only lost in the UFC was to Aljamain Sterling, and that's not a bad loss at all. I just think Stamann's a better fighter all around. I don't think he'll be finished Kelleher, but I think I have Cody Stamann by decision.
Yeah, I like Stamann by decision too, but I don't like the odds. Minus 265, no thanks. I'm not betting on him here. Kelleher's a guy, guys, we've talked about him in the last show when he got that knockout win over Hunter Azar. He's won like 5 times as an underdog. So this is a guy that is constantly underrated by the betting community and by just MMA fans in general. He's a guy that can win fights. So to me, it's a stay away from fight from a betting perspective, but I still got to pick Stamann just because The wrestling, I think, is the difference here, Cole. I just think he's going to be able to be a little bit like bigger and just kind of grind on Brian Keller. That's kind of how I see the fight going. So to me, it's going to be a decision for Cody Stamann. But and you know what? It probably does cash. I think that does win, but I don't like the odds at minus 265. I just think Keller is a guy who's proven he can win, and we count him on every time, and he comes through with the win. So just be careful about this one, guys. I wouldn't go too crazy on it. All right, next up, middleweight bout, Ian Heinisch against Gerald Meerschaert. This is one of the closest fights on the cards according to the odds makers. Heinisch minus 125, Meerschaert plus 105. Who's your pick, Cole?
I'm going with the underdog in Gerald Meerschaert. I was Heine and Heinisch. The last two fights have really turned me off on him. I think that Carlos Jr. fight was really impressive. And then he was the guy that's supposed to have such good cardio. And then against Derek Brunson, he was the one that gassed. Omari Akhmadov just was the much better fighter. Gerald Meerschaert on the ground, I think that's where he's going to have success. He's obviously is really dangerous. Submitted Darren Wynn last time out. Before that, lost Eric Anders in a fight. A lot of people thought he won, then submitted Trevin Giles. I think Gerald Meerschaert can take this fight down to the ground and have a lot of success. I don't think either of them will be able to finish the fight. It's definitely interesting. I think this might be it for Ian Heinisch if he loses, just because it's 3 in a row if he does lose. I think this is kind of a do or die for him. He might get one more, but I have Gerald Meerschaert to win by a decision.
Yeah, this fight's close for sure. I mean, there's a reason the odds are close. Heinisch definitely has not impressed me lately. I thought this guy was better than he was after those wins over Ferreira and Junior because the cardio I thought was going to be a thing that would help him out. But the last two fights, he's kind of got tired in the fights, which is weird to me. So I don't know, man. He's just on a lot of holes. Meerschaert's got holes in his game too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a guy who's lost 12 times in his career, but he also has 30 wins. He's got a ton of experience. He's dangerous everywhere. He can knock you out. He can submit you. His ground game is super dangerous. He can wrestle with guys. And to me, he's actually improving. Like, I know his record's not great lately, Cole, but look at the Eric Anders fight. He could have won that fight. The Kevin Holland fight's a fight a lot of people thought he won too. So to me, this is a guy who is possibly on a 4-fight win streak if you count those as wins. In my view, he probably did win those fights. So he's been impressive in his career. It's a close fight because these guys are honestly kind of similar in many ways, but I got to go with Gerald Meerschaert too, Cole, as an underdog. I thought you might pick him, Cole. We didn't talk about the fights beforehand, obviously. We never do. I just want to come here blindly, when I talk to you. But I do like Gerald Meerschaert to win a decision because I just think at plus 105, I feel like there's a small value on him possibly here as well, but it is close. So I just think it's a pick 'em. It should be minus 110 each. And Meerschaert is a dog. There's some small value there. All right, next up. Last fight in the prelims here, Alex Caceres against Chase Hooper. Or may not, we got Chase Hooper minus 165, Caceres plus 145. Give me your pick, Cole.
I have Chase Hooper and I have him to submit Alex Caceres. I think Caceres is on 2-fight losing streak. I think he lost to Steven Peterson. I think a lot of people thought he lost. Before that was submitted to Kron Gracie. He's a guy that I'm not very high on. He got submitted by Jason Knight, who I don't think has the best ground game. He's lost to Yair Rodriguez, Guan Wang. He's like, who he's beat lately are not really UFC caliber guys like Ronaldo D and Martin Bravo. I just think Chase Hooper, I think Caceres might be able to have success on the feet, but once he hits the ground, I think Hooper's going to be way too much for Caceres. I think this is a name for Hooper to build his UFC record on. This is something the UFC continues to push. They have him doing like Fight Pass interviews. He's really entertaining on social media. I think this is someone the UFC really wants to push. I think this is a win where he can get another stoppage win. They're putting him on a spotlight right before the main card. I think Chase Hooper can submit or maybe ground pound TKO like he did to Tamer and get a win probably in the first round. Yeah.
We got Justin in the chat saying he wants to join in. Sorry, man. This is for me and Cole. If you want, post your picks in the comment section and I'll talk about them. But me and Cole are on the video here. All right. For this fight, Cole, I like Chase Hooper too. I mean, for all the same reasons you do. I don't even understand why Caceres is still in the UFC in many ways. Like, this is a guy who's been around for a long time. He's hung in there, but again, I thought he lost the last fight. I don't know, Cole. To me, he's just a gatekeeper at this point. I think Hooper smokes him. I think Hooper probably wins in the first round. Hooper inside distance plus 105. And to be honest, Cole, minus 145, that stands out to me as a bet. I don't understand why Hooper is such a low favorite here. Caceres has more experience. We all know that, but Hooper is super dangerous. Caceres has been submitted many times in his career. He's got 7 submission losses. Hooper by submission is a really good pick, I think. Possibly even by TKO. Takes him down, grounds and pounds him out. Chase Hooper wins, man. Cool. The line surprises me. Minus 145. I think it should be 245. So to me, it's minus 165. But it was minus 145 a few days ago. It opened at minus 110. Caceres opened as a favorite, which is crazy to me. It's so stupid. All right, next up, we got Eddie Wineland against Sean O'Malley. It's the first fight on the main card. Sean O'Malley's a huge favorite. minus 475. Eddie Wineland plus 380. Who's your pick?
I like Sean O'Malley to win this fight. I like him to win by knockout. I think this is going to be another first, second round knockout for Sean O'Malley. Eddie Wineland, obviously, that last one against Grigor Popov was nice. Finish win for that 2 straight decision losses. He's a guy that is hard to finish. Like his last finish loss was in 2014 against John Eduardo. I just think Sean O'Malley he's obviously a lot bigger. I think he's a lot better than Eddie Wineland at this stage of their career. I think this is a good opponent for O'Malley. I think Wineland's kind of that decent sized name for O'Malley to build off of. I think he can get another stoppage win here. I think it's going to be tougher than what it was against Quinones. I think maybe it will go the distance, but I think Sean O'Malley will win this fight no matter what.
You got Pavlo 005. Told you about Dorino. I also picked him. Cole should listen to us, though.
Yeah.
All right, as far as this fight goes, you know what? You got to go with Sean O'Malley. Obviously, I mean, he's a huge favorite for a reason. He's extremely talented, 25 years old, undefeated. He's looked great in the UFC, 3-0, coming off a really good win over Quinones after a long layoff, which was nice to see. He's a guy that's got to make up for lost time, man. He missed 2 years of his prime, because of USADA issues. I hope he can make a run. I think he can make a run for the top 15, for the top 10. This is a good step up. Eddie Wineland's a really good fighter. He's a veteran. He's a guy who's a former WC champion. He's fought for the UFC title. He's a guy who's honestly had an underrated career, but you got to go with Sean O'Malley just because, first off, he's 10 years younger. That's huge. And then all the intangibles as far as like striking and stuff goes, to me, it's all in his favor. But Eddie Wineland's experience, he's extremely tough too. He's hard to finish. He's only been knocked out 3 times in his career. He's had 38 fights, so he's a tough guy to finish. It seems like O'Malley by knockout is probably the way the fight goes. But just looking at the odds, O'Malley minus 475, people will parlay that it probably should win. But if you're going to look at a prop, O'Malley's side distance, that's what Cole said at minus 160. Okay, that could win. I'm looking at O'Malley by decision at plus 270, guys, because I think Eddie Wineland can hang in there for 3 rounds. I think this fight's going to be a little bit tougher than people think. Like, Wineland is a guy I respect a lot. So this is going to be a great fight. But I do think Wineland maybe can hang in there and not win decision, but maybe just make it the distance. So take a look at that prop on O'Malley by decision, because I think there could be value in that. Considering he's a minus 475 favorite, you could take plus 270 as a prop instead, possibly. But I know a lot of people probably think he's going to knock Wineland out. He might, so we'll see what happens. But I definitely like O'Malley in this fight. It's hard not to love him here. All right, couple of fights left here, Cole. Welterweight bout, Neil Magny against Anthony Rocco Martin. Magny minus 145, Rocco Martin plus 125. Who's your pick?
I really like Neil Magny in this fight. I'm surprised he's not a bigger favorite. His last fight against Jingli, that really surprised me. I didn't expect Magny to look that good. He dominated that fight. And he's making a pretty quick turnaround. That was only in March. And then, because he obviously had the loss of Ponzinibbio in 2018, then he was dealing with USADA and some injuries. Anthony Rocco, the way to beat Neil Magny is by knockout. Anthony Rocco Martin, I don't think, has the knockout power to catch Neil Magny. His last win was against Ramzan Emeev. I think Neil Magny is on a much higher level. I think he's just going to use his reach because he has a 6.5-inch reach advantage. I think Neil Magny's just going to use the size, just be able to pick apart Anthony Rocco Martin. I don't think he'll be able to finish Martin. He's a tough guy, but I think Neil Magny will do similar to what he did to Lee and just earn a decision win.
Yeah, to me, this is a pretty competitive fight, guys. Cole definitely likes Magny. I lean towards Magny, but to me, it's a very slight lean. To me, the reach advantage is the thing that's probably going to win in the fight because it's a big reach advantage, and it's won him a lot of fights in the past. He also has great cardio, too. So the fight goes the full 3 rounds like I expected to. I think he'll probably win that last round for sure. In the second round, will probably be close, but Magny. So to me, it's like, can Martin finish him? He could win decision possibly, too, but if Martin's going to win this fight, it's probably by finish, Cole. Can he knock Neil Magny out? I don't know. We haven't really seen too much knockout power of Martin over his career. A little bit here and there, like the Ryan LaFleur fight, but maybe he can catch him with a head kick. I don't know. Maybe he goes to decision and Martin's able to maybe wrestle Magny, be on top of him a little bit, win decision. But to me, I think Magny's going to win decision, Cole, and just pick him apart, win decision. But I don't know. I don't feel like too strongly enough to make it out of this one. All right, next up, bantamweight bout. To me, this probably should be in the co-main event, but either way, it's on the main card. Great fight. To me, it's one of the best fights in the card. We got Aljamain Sterling against Cory Sandhagen. Aljamain Sterling minus 120, Sandhagen plus 100. Cole, who's your pick?
Yeah, this is a phenomenal fight. I wish they would have made this for the bantamweight title and just had the winner fight period, and just to give this 2 title fights on the card. I know Dana White wanted Yan to fight for the belt, but really, what's the difference between having just this for the belt and Yan getting the first crack at it. Like, there's really no difference. It would have added to the pay-per-view having a second title fight. And I really wish this was 5 rounds. I think this fight goes the full 3 rounds. That's why I would have liked to see 5 rounds, because maybe you have someone finish in the 4th or 5th round. But I like Cory Sandhagen in this fight. I think he can keep this fight on the feet. I think where Sterling will have success is on the ground, but I don't think he can get it there. I think on the feet, Sandhagen's footwork, his box, I think that's much better than Sterling. I don't think either of them will be able to finish the fight, but I just think on the feet, Sandhagen will be able to piece up Sterling and just outpoint Sterling, get a decision win.
Yeah, this is definitely a competitive fight. Both guys are extremely solid, as we both know. I'm with Cole. This should have been for the vacant title, but UFC didn't want to do that for some reason. I don't understand why. I guess because they want Aldo and Yan as the title fight. Either way, great fight. I wish it was 5 rounds. I'll be honest. I don't really see a finish in the 3 rounds. I think we probably go to the distance here. But I'm with Cole in this one. I like Cory Sandhagen, guys. I think he should be the favorite in this fight, personally. I'm a little surprised he's the underdog. I think at plus 100, there's probably value on Cory Sandhagen for a bet here. It's a competitive fight. If he loses, it could happen. But I just feel like the striking advantage is huge in his favor. Sterling's got good striking, but Sandhagen is next level. The footwork, like Cole mentioned, the cardio. Sterling's cardio is good too, but Sandhagen to me is to me right now, he's the better fighter. Also, Sterling's coming off like surgery and a long layoff too, like a year layoff. So to me, that hurts. I like Sandhagen, man. Cole, plus 100 for a guy that I think should slightly be favored in this fight. Give me Cory Sandhagen, man. So me and Cole are on there. We have an agreement on that one. All right, 2 more fights left, Cole. Co-main event, Cody Garbrandt, minus 150, Rafael Sunsao, plus 130. Who wins this bantamweight fight?
See, so I think I might be way off on this, but I think this is the co-main event because if Peter Yan beats Jose Aldo and Cody Garbrandt wins his fight, I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC does Yan versus Garbrandt. They have that backstage altercation at 245. Garbrandt's a bigger name. I think Sterling Sandhagen winner should get the title, but I would not be surprised if that's happen. But I think Cody Garbrandt should win this fight. If he doesn't, I don't really know where he goes from here. He's worked with Mark Henry for this camp, which I really like. I like Mark Henry as a coach. I think the way to beat Cody Garbrandt is to knock him out. And I don't think Rafael Sunsao has the knockout power. I think Garbrandt could keep his fight on the feet. I think he has more power than Sunsao. I don't know if he'll be able to finish Sunsao because Sunsao is a tough guy. Maybe he might be able to get like a late 2nd, 3rd round TKO after he beats up Sunsao for a bit. But I think Cody Garbrandt should win this fight, and I'll pick him maybe by 3rd round TKO, if not a decision.
Yeah, I was looking at the odds for the fight going over the 2.5. It's minus 110, so that surprises me. To me, like, the Sunsao's a guy who almost always goes to decision. He is tough to finish. He's very experienced. He's a talented guy, underrated guy. He's had an underrated career. But to me, this is the kind of fight that Cody Garbrandt should win. I think he can actually win this fight because I think his striking's better. So that's the difference in this fight. Sunsao doesn't have knockout power. He probably won't finish Garbrandt. He could catch him, I guess, because Garbrandt's chin doesn't look good. But to me, Garbrandt, look who he got knocked out by, TJ Dillashaw twice, and then Pedro Munoz. Those guys actually can knock you out. I don't think Sunsao can do that. I know he has the one knockout win over Lopez, but that's it. It's a guy who goes the distance almost every fight. I got to go with Cody Garbrandt here, win decision, Cole. It's not like a super, super confident pick by any means, but I think matchup-wise it favors him. I think UFC knows what they're doing here. I think you should probably win a decision in this fight. All right, finally, Cole, main event of the evening, Amanda Nunes against Felicia Spencer. Nunes is a huge favorite, minus 630. Felicia Spencer, plus 465. Wow. All right, Cole, who's your pick?
I actually think this is a close fight than the odds suggest. I think Amanda Nunes is going to win this fight, but Felicia Spencer's tough. This is only Nunes' 2nd time in the UFC fighting a featherweight. She obviously knocked out Cyborg quick, but we saw Spencer can take a shot with Cyborg. I think as the fight goes on, Spencer's going to have the more success. I think she has the better cardio than Nunes. We've seen Nunes slow down a bit, especially in the Duranami fight later on. I think Spencer, if it goes to the 4th, 5th round, could have success on the ground. I don't think she'll be able to beat Amanda Nunes. I just think Nunes' striking is just going to be way better than Spencer. I think she can keep the fight off the ground. I think that's the real key for Nunes. If she can't stuff Spencer's takedowns and get out of the clinch, I think it's going to be trouble for Nunes. I think she could get hurt at one point, but I think Nunes can do enough on the feet, keep his fight standing, just pick apart Felicia Spencer, stop the takedowns. I honestly, which I'm surprised, I have Amanda Nunes by decision, and Nunes by decision is plus 360. I don't think she's going to be able to finish Felicia Spencer. Felicia Spencer's tough. She went 3 rounds of Cyborg. She didn't really even seem hurt in that fight. I don't think Nunes will be able to finish Spencer. I think it's going to be similar to Randy where it goes the full 5 rounds.
I just want to get Pablo's comment here. He didn't like that last fight as the co-main event. He also thinks Sandhagen is going to be the champion. All right, as far as the main event goes, Yeah, you got to favor Nunes, but I mean, at minus 630, there's no value there anymore. Like, even putting in her parlay is kind of dangerous because Spencer's a big girl, man. You know, she's an actual featherweight. Nunes, she is the featherweight champ, and she did beat Cyborg, but she's a bantamweight. So, you know, Spencer is tough. She is durable. She's impressive for sure. Besides the Cyborg fight, she looked good, and she has good submissions, good ground and pound. But you got to go with Nunes, obviously. The striking advantage is huge in her favor. The cardio, she's proven she can go 5 rounds. The submissions, she's just great. You know, the question is, does she finish the fight or not? That's the biggest question here. It's not about who wins, because I think Nunes does win this fight, although I don't like the odds. I still think she wins the fight, though. It's either you go with Nunes inside distance minus 265 or decision at plus 360. Cole likes the decision prop. It's interesting. I'm still thinking about what the method. I'm kind of leaning towards a finish, though, guys. I'm not going to lie. I do think she'll be able to put Spencer out, just because I know Spencer did go the 3 rounds with Cyborg. Nunes hits even harder, I think, than Cyborg at this point. I think she can put her out. So we'll see what happens. She got 5 rounds to do it, but the Duranemy fight kind of like showed me that she's content writing a decision out. She has to. So to me, again, the biggest question is decision or finish. I'm leaning finish. Cole's leaning decision, but you know, you look at the odds yourself and you can see what has better value. So anyways, that's it for the UFC 250 preview. And we're going to just go to some just new stuff before we get out here, Cole. I'm going to start with Jon Jones, Dana White. Once again, just going after each other. Dana White saying Jon Jones could have been LeBron James of MMA, and Jon Jones saying Dana White's lying to the public and to release the text messages and stuff from their financial conversations as far as the Nagano fight goes. Basically, Dana's claiming that Jones asked for $30 million, Deontay Wilder money to fight Nagano. Jones is saying that that's not what happened. Who knows, Cole? It's he said. But Jones did say that he is willing to vacate the title. Sounds like he basically said he did, but it's not official yet by any means. Do you think he's actually going to vacate the belt, Cole?
I think it's definitely possible. I talked to Mike John last night, and he said on Sunday night, Jones sat down the team and basically said, if I don't get what I want, I'm fine with walking away from the sport. During this quarantine, he said he's had a good time just hanging out with his family, just being a dad. So he said, which that surprised me, was it seemed like it was just hanging out on social media, but for Jones to sit down his entire team with Jackson Wood could say, listen, like, I might not fight again, definitely seems like he's sincere. I think this is something that's been bugging him for a long time. I think him and Dana White have not gotten along for a long time. I don't think they've liked each other really since the Henderson-Sonnen thing happened. And Dana White called Jon Jones and Winklejohn Jackson like killers of the sport.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see them finally go after it, but I don't really like the way they're going at it. I think they just need to sit down, have Jon Jones, Hunter Campbell, Dana White sit in a room and figure this out. I don't think you're gaining any fans. I think you're honestly losing fans for both of them, the way they're handling this. So it's definitely interesting. I don't think he's going to vacate the belt. I think cooler heads will prevail and he'll fight, but I do think he is serious about vacating the belt if he doesn't get what he wants.
Yeah, it's so hard to say with Jon Jones, man, because he's always tweeting stuff and then takes it back. He's always changing his mind. I don't know, like, don't want to get too political by any means, but, you know, obviously we saw what happened with Jon Jones yesterday. He got involved with the protests, kind of stopping some vandals. So, you know, maybe this is something that's really important to him, and he wants to focus on that right now. And just like, you know, I'm going to give my belt up. And he mentioned that in his tweet that he gives his belt up. He's going to fight again in 2020 against Adesanya. That's what he mentioned as a fight. So it's clear that Jon Jones is looking for super fights. I can't blame him, man. You know what? The last few fights, cool. Here's the argument I have. Yeah, they were close. So you think, okay, you should stay at light heavyweight because these fights are close. The guys are catching up to him. But the other end of it, you could say, well, they're getting close and he's closer to losing. Maybe you should move up for this heavyweight super fight or somehow fight Adesanya in a super fight just to get, you know, these big super fights out of the way. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm leaning towards them actually giving the belt up just based on what he said. But who knows with Jon Jones, man? He's such a hard guy to read sometimes. And, you know, Dana, though, throwing his top fighter under the bus like he has been, geez, I mean, what a bad look. But, you know, that's what Dana chooses to do. Just a few other things here, Cole. There was a report yesterday from The Athletic that said that I think it was 46.7 or 45.7% of MMA fighters that they polled smoke marijuana. And Jeff Nowitzki's coming out now, and he said that he wants it removed from the water list, the prohibited list. Long overdue, Cole. I mean, this is crazy to me. You know, we live in Canada, so it's legal here, you know. But to me, Cole, it's so like antiquated that it's still even like against the law, and you know, in some jurisdictions, and guys like Kelvin Gastelum getting suspended for smoking weed in 2020. Like, what the hell, right?
Yeah, and especially because you can still get tested whenever, and a lot of people use it after their fight to because
Yeah.
your body's so beat up, where a lot of people just use marijuana to help them heal up. It's a lot better than taking a lot of pain medications and possibly getting addicted to those.
Yeah.
So I don't get why people are getting still getting suspended for marijuana. Countries have legalized it. States have legalized it. Like the drug, water needs to get ahead of the time and realize it's not a prohibited drug. It doesn't impact your like it has no performance enhancing at all. I can see like putting a 24-hour window before your fight, not allowed to smoke, or a 12-hour window, like can't smoke the day of your fight. But after the fight, who really cares? You're not going to fight for another 3-4 months. So why does it matter if you smoke weed to just help you recover?
Yeah, it's so stupid. Obviously, I'm not advocating for guys to, take a bong rip and then go in the cage. I mean, that doesn't sound very smart. But if these guys want to smoke weed, who cares? Like, really cool. So to me, Jeff Nowitzki's ran the money here, and this really needs to be changed. You just got to feel bad for guys like Nick Diaz, who had his win over Takanori Gomi overturned years ago. And I remember the commission said at the time, you used marijuana to, have like superhuman powers basically and be able to take more damage, which was so funny. And even a guy like Pat Healy. Pat Healy had a fight. I can't remember who was it against. Jim Miller, I think it was. Jim Miller. He submitted Jim Miller. He won $100,000 in bonuses, and the UFC took it away from him after he tested positive for marijuana. And he was like, he said a story. It was so sad. He was like, he had like a high school reunion, and one of his friends, passed him a joint. He used it, and it cost him $100,000. The guy Pat Healy is a guy who didn't make much money, so that always made me really upset. And even guys like Kelvin Gastelum, yeah, the argument is, Kelvin knows the rules and Kelvin should be following the rules. Like, is it that hard? Well, I guess it is that hard for him, But to me, it's like a 9-month suspension quote was like so ridiculous. So, hopefully this coming out shows that it is something that's being used by the fighters, but it's not being used in a malicious way. So I hope that rule is changed. And again, I'm with you, Cole, like 12, 24 hours, something like that, like where they can't, be physically high. Not that they probably would be anyways, but you don't want a guy being high because that's a safety concern, obviously. But after the fight, who cares? Like, and even in training camp, like really, who cares? All right. Got a comment from Marcus. What's going on, Marcus? How are you, man? What are your thoughts on rankings at 170s? Burns get Usman as new number contender. We did talk about this at the beginning of the show, Marcus, but I'll go do it again because you weren't here. I'm fine with them. I like Burns at number 1, but I also noticed Leon Edwards. He's complaining now that Woodley's above him still. I don't like that either. I think Edwards should be above Woodley, but Woodley should probably be above Wonderboy. So it should be 5. Otherwise, I mean, I don't hate them. I mean, you could do Covington at 1 if you wanted to, but I think overall they're pretty good. I think Burns did take that number 1 spot when he beat Woodley. So to me, Cole, the rankings look okay, but I'd like to see Edwards above Woodley. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to see Edwards above Woodley too. I think. Let me just pull up the rankings quick.
Yeah, dogs are excited about Tyron Woodley's fights apparently.
Here's how I would do it. I would do Burns, Covington, Masvidal, Edwards, Woodley, Thompson. So I'd have Woodley at 5.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'd have too. All right, Cole. My dogs are getting anxious here, man. They want to go out. Just the last thing here. UFC says they're going to end the deal with Reebok probably. This is one of the worst things that's ever happened to the fight. To be honest with you. I remember when it came out, I was like, "This is disgusting. It's something in such in UFC favor. Like, I can't believe the fighters would agree to it." But they don't have a union, so they had no choice. It's terrible. So to me, it's always been a bad deal. I saw someone post the stats. Mike, I think it was Bond, but he said that like they signed for like 70 million, only like 30 million has been paid out to the fighters, and Dana White said all the money was going to the fighters. So that doesn't make any sense. UFC's obviously made out like bandits from this deal, and the fighters have been screwed because they can't use their own sponsors. Guys like Brendan Schaub, for instance, Cole, like he said he made $100,000 a fight from sponsors alone. Back in the day, Cole, sponsors were the thing. You would, they'd have the sponsors, Condom Depot, Bad Boy, like my sponsor, So there was tons of sponsors, Venom, Jacko Hybrid, like all these sponsors. So to me, it's something that's got to be changed. I don't know what's going to happen though. It seems like they'll probably just sign with like another one of these big companies like Nike or Adidas or whatever. The fighters need a union straight up. I mean, but we could all have a full blown conversation on it. But I mean, Cole, it's kind of crazy, and they don't make that much money from it, quite frankly.
Yeah, the Reebok deal is terrible for the fighters. I hope they can go back to. I honestly don't think they're going to go back to having sponsored shorts. I think they're going to do a deal with another company, but I just hope it pays the fighters a lot more. The UFC should not be taking over half the money from the Reebok deal. They shouldn't have even taken that much. It's going to all it's just for the fighters, and it was a terrible deal. Like if there was a union, the fighter could have said no, but unfortunately, there's no union. So when this contract's up, the UFC can just sign on to another one with another company, and the fighters have no say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Anyone has any last second questions, throw them in, but me and Cole are going to get out of here in a second. Cole, was there anything else you want to talk about? Anything we didn't mention on the show yet?
No, I think we got everything.
Hey, Cole, plug your stuff.
Yeah, Twitter at ColeShaw91. I had a lot of stuff this week, so I talked to Felicia Spencer, Sean O'Malley, Rafael Sunsao, Manifield, Devin Clark, fighter picks for the main event, and Sterling Sandhagen, all on BJ Penn. And then I talked to Mike Wiljohn last night about the whole Jon Jones stuff, so that's posted on BJ Penn as well. And then everything else is always on my Twitter.
Good stuff, man. You guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAdamMartin, and I'm available at MMAOddsbreaker.com, BJPenn.com, MMAratings.net. So MMA Oddsbreaker got my opening odds and main event preview. But if you listen to the show, you know who I'm picking in the main event. But either way, check it out. BJPenn.com, the news, and then MMA Ratings. I should have an article about this weekend's card on there as well this week. Guys, once again, thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Always looking to get some more, subscribers, likes, all that stuff. So really appreciate you guys could just spread the word about the show. Me and Cole love doing this. It's just fun to talk about the fights with Cole, and I hope you guys are enjoying it too. Have a great day, guys. I'll be back Friday morning to talk about the news during the week and anything else related to UFC 250. Have an awesome day. Talk to you later. Bye.